Weirdvoice, First Anthology, Chapter 2. It was the morning of New Year's Day, and Susanna was lying in bed when her little brother Sam, standing in his bright red pajamas, knocked on her door. "Hey, Susanna, thanks for letting me hang out with your friends last night. It was really fun." "Sure," she said. Sam was in 7th grade, and she had no idea whether he was making friends and getting along well in life in general. Susanna was in high school, so she couldn't tell what Sam was up to most of the time. "They thought you were super cool," she said. "Really?" He perked up. "Cool," he said through a huge grin. Their mom was shrieking upstairs, again, like every Saturday morning, and Susanna and Sam stood in the living room near the foot of the stairs, waiting for her to come down and wondering why she was shrieking again. When she finally descended, it was mid-morning and she was calm. In the kitchen, she poured the flour into a blue plastic bowl and started beating the eggs for buttermilk pancakes. The smell wafted through the living room and into the bathroom, where Susanna was getting ready to take a shower. One summer, before Susanna's parents had gotten divorced, Susanna's best friend Ray invited Susanna to go camping with Ray's family at Heron Lake. The first night, Ray and Susanna took a bath with Ray's mom, Fran, in the lake under the millions of stars. The water was lit up from the moon, and she could see her feet touching the flat rocks at the bottom as Susanna rubbed the white soap bar against her own skin. Susanna remembered seeing the hair under Fran's armpits and how it turned opaque with suds. She remembered Fran's muscular body and how she moved through space with strength, power. Susanna felt like a mermaid that night, immune to all fear. Now, in the shower, Susanna took her razor to her armpits and shaved away the stubble, and took a razor to her legs and shaved away the stubble, and scrubbed her back and neck and arms, cleaning up her body. She dreamt the night before of a large ballroom with a bald man in the center. He sat at a desk with lawyerly papers and a gavel and struck the table. His gavel became a hammer, and he was hammering his table apart. He got to his knees and hacked at them because the hammer had become a machete. His legs, his bones shattered. His face and arms sat on the ground as he took a breath, surveying the damage. This ballroom was the size of a stadium. Her mother, waving to her from the other side, didn't seem to comprehend the enormity of the space. Her dad, standing against a far-off wall, was scheming with some men in their suits. Susanna couldn't see their faces, but their body language suggested they were pleased with themselves. She attempted to lift her arms to wave back to her mother. Her arms wouldn't move. On a camping trip with her father in Crested Butte, Colorado, when she was 9, her dad dared her to swim across the lake, and it was a big lake. She wanted him to be impressed with her, so she swam across the whole width of the lake. She knew her dad would walk along the perimeter and meet her on the other side. She didn't turn back to wave or look for him. As she got closer to the shore, she found the shallow waters thick with seaweed. She had to walk through it because the water was now too shallow to swim. Her feet sunk into the deepest mud. The murky water was filled with impossibly scary things. Rubbing against her legs and stomach and fingertips, the seaweed reached every crevice of her red, shaking body. Ignoring the sea monsters, which were lurking in the muck, perhaps already sliding against her, she walked and walked and walked to shore. Mud in her toenails, slimy blades of whatever slapping against her thighs. On shore, every step she took hurt. She looked down. Goat heads, patches of them, everywhere along the entire shore of the lake and all the way back to the other side. She was too tired and disgusted to swim back, wouldn't wade through the slime again. And her dad hadn't run along the lake to come meet her. Her family across the lake, now dim shapes moving further and further away, seemed to assume she'd be fine. She'd been barefoot on patches of goat heads before, with Ray, back at the wild-grown territory behind the Children's Museum. She knew the goat heads hurt, but you could pull them out one at a time, with each one leaving only a red dot on the bottom of your foot. She decided to walk barefoot along the sharp bank to get back to her dad and brother and the woman. With almost every step, she stopped to pick the goat heads out of the soles of her feet, and then kept going, hopping from brown spot to brown spot on the cracking earth. A part of her thought her dad was still planning to come pick her up in a car or a golf cart, or to call a helicopter to bring her back. She thought he'd come rescue her, and that's what kept her walking. About 45 minutes later, she arrived, sunburnt and covered in bug bites, patches of goat heads covering the bottoms of her feet. Her father was relaxing on a camping chair, eating a sandwich. Her dad said he was proud of her. She had been very brave. One early morning on that same camping trip, a bear showed up outside their regal, family-sized tent, prowling around their makeshift kitchen. Susanna's dad snarled, "Wake up!" to Susanna, Sam, and the woman sharing the sleeping bag with their dad, and he ushered them all quickly to his big yellow Land Cruiser. On the way to the vehicle, Susanna bumped into a clear string that anchored the tent to the ground and fell flat on her back. She felt like she had become food for the bear already, and there was nothing to be done about it. But her heart kept beating anyway. Her dad saw her down and rushed back from the car and pulled her up by her hands and carried her to the Land Cruiser. They went for breakfast in town, letting the bear have its way with the campsite. They came back midday and changed to go on a hike through the wildflowers. No one seemed to say much about what the bear had gone and done to their makeshift kitchen. All the food had been torn through and destroyed. On the hike, while in the Colorado flowers, that reached up to her hips and swayed as she passed through them, Susanna saw a memory of herself, age 3, dressed in all blue and wading through yellow flowers on another Colorado hill. Her hair was blonde. Her parents were happy in the memory, in love. When she got back from the camping trip and into her mom's house, she found out that memory of her on a hill was a photograph mounted on her mother's boarded-up fireplace. The hill was green, and Susanna was standing on the slope alone, holding a single daisy in her toddler fingers, looking anxious. "Who took the photo of me with the wildflower?" "I did," her mother said. "That was on a trip to Crested Butte we went on when you were 3. "Where was Dad?" "I don't know," her mother replied. Her mom was pregnant then with Susanna's little brother. Her mom said that Susanna was such a beautiful little baby, a beautiful toddler. She was always talking nonstop to anyone who would listen. "Your mother got very depressed after you were born," her dad said as they walked from the downtown Gap along the east side of the plaza back to his Land Cruiser, a day before Christmas. "She was?" Susanna asked in disbelief. "Very depressed," he said. Susanna tried to imagine her mother holding a baby and being very depressed. "Why?" "I don't know," he said, as if there was something in his periphery much more important than this. When Susanna asked her mother why she was depressed when Susanna was born, her mom sighed out, saddened by the question. "I just woke up one day and felt totally overwhelmed when I realized I was now in charge of another person's life." In charge of another person's life. Susanna thought that idea over and over again to herself. What is it like to be in charge of another person's life? "How did you and Dad meet?" she asked her mother once. Her mother said they met on the tennis court and that's where they fell in love. She pictured 2 strangers with brown wavy 80s hair, the man in bright white tennis shorts and a bright white tennis polo shirt, and the woman in a bright white tennis dress, running from spot to spot, serving, grunting, sweating, then taking turns pressing the little rubber button that released the water from the orange cooler that stood under an awning beside the edge of the net. "What's your name and what do you do?" they asked each other between sips from their cone paper cups. "What's your name and what do you do?" "I'm whoever and I do this and that." "You?" "I'm whoever and I do this and that and other stuff and am very important and very busy and very thirsty." The orange cooler was sweating into the sun, and when they reached to press the button for more, water from its sides dripped onto their fingertips. She wondered why her mom felt all alone when Susanna was born, like the weight of a whole new person's life rested on her shoulders alone. This was when her mom and dad were still married, and so they would have been together, and so they would have shared the burden of responsibility for a whole new person's life. Isn't that what 2 parents are for? She dreamt the night before of a large ballroom with a bald man in the center. He sat at a desk with lawyerly papers and a gavel and struck the table. His legs, his bones, shattered. His face and arms sat on the ground as he took a breath, surveying side didn't seem to comprehend the enormity of the space. Her dad, standing against a far-off wall, was scheming with some men in their suits. Susanna couldn't see their faces, but their body language suggested they were pleased with themselves. She attempted to lift her arms to wave back. It was getting to be late, and Susanna still wanted to do something fun with New Year's Day. She stepped out of the shower, her body slick and clean. And smelling fresh like the manufactured scent of wildflowers that grow in memories on Colorado hills. She got dressed and sat down to pancakes with her mom and brother. Goatheads was written by Ariel Stess and performed by Aviva Jaye. It was engineered by Cruz. Weirdvoice is an anthology of haunted stories. Each chapter is created from scratch by the Gore Collective in Chicago. The Gore Collective is Michael Gilio, writer and performer; Exal Iraheta, writer and communications; Aviva Jaye, writer and performer; Ele Matelan, Foley artist and sound designer; Matthew Muñiz, director, producer, composer, and production manager; Brett Neveu, writer and producer; Maya Reeder, sound design, mixing and producer; Rich Sparks, visual artist, writer and producer; and Neil Verma, director, field recordist, and first anthology producer. Special thanks to Leah Cole. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. For more, visit our website at icecorecollective.com. Weirdvoice is recorded at the studios of Northwestern University's School of Communication and in the field. And now, quiet time.